Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be starting in 2 minutes. Just letting y'all know. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please? We're about to begin our forum, so please take your seats. Thank you very much.
Hello and good evening. Thank you all for being here today, and welcome to the Future Votes KC 2019 Mayoral Candidate Forum.
My name is Sagi Rudnick from Hyman Brand Hebrew Academy.
And I'm Bernadette Looney from University Academy.
We are your co-moderators of the forum tonight and members of Future Votes KC, a coalition of 2 high schools, Hyman Brand Hebrew Academy and University Academy.
Each year for the past 5 years, our schools select a social justice-related community issue to tackle together. And this year, with support from Moore Square, the issue we have chosen is encouraging Kansas Cityans to vote and engage in the election process.
The majority of us are not old enough to vote in this election, but we are the future voters of Kansas City and the metro area, and we are working together to make our community a better place.
Our goal tonight is to offer the citizens of Kansas City an opportunity to learn about our 2019 mayoral candidates and their positions on the most critical issues facing our city, and to hear their plans to improve our community.
We are so thankful to the candidates who have taken time out of their busy schedules to be with us today. We will be meeting them all in just a minute. First, before we begin, I would like to hand the mic to some talented students for a mini poetry slam. First, we will hear from Maddie Bell, freshman from Hyman Brand Hebrew Academy.
Social justice. What is social justice? An abstract concept that hasn't yet been reached, a goal for the future maybe? Before we get through whatever other problems we have, because there are so many more important things than whether or not someone feels safe in their own country. I get confused when people ask me what it's like to be a young Jew in America, or if I feel safe as a girl in the USA. I get confused because I live in a bubble. I live in a bubble where I am safe and have just the freedom to be selfish and only worry about me. I watch the world through stained glass, everything tinted in blue shades of sympathy for the people who have so much worse than me. When people ask me what it's like, the only words I can speak are the parts of other people's stories. Tragedies I've seen happen to people like me that I'm supposed to relate to myself? Are you telling me that I could turn a corner and there could be someone there ready to rape me? That I could be praying one minute and then find a bullet in my skull the next? Then why has it never happened to me? Why are the only tragedies the ones I see on TV? People say it's because I'm lucky, that I grew up somewhere safe. What is that supposed to mean? Shouldn't everyone grow up somewhere safe? Doesn't every child deserve the chance to go to school without a threat? Doesn't every religion deserve the peace to practice their beliefs? Doesn't every human deserve the acceptance to love? But I can't speak for anyone else. So when people ask me what it's like, I get all tongue-tied because of the blind eye that I have turned to try and think myself safe in a world where everything happens by chance. But I can't speak for anyone else. But if you were to ask me what I think social justice is, it's an idea to help us achieve peace, love, and acceptance.
Thank you so much, Maddie. That was really powerful.
We now have a slam duet from Mayan Boyd, junior from University Academy, and Sky Bergerson, sophomore, also from University Academy.
If you didn't hear, I'm Mayan Boyd.
I'm Sky Bergerson.
And this poem is titled In an Instant. I remember that day. Bumblebees buzzed in my blood, pushing X and O's into my arteries as my heart-shaped sticky notes passed from sweaty fingers. I needed you to answer a question. Your eyes lit the letters, and with each pause, my heart sped up. With each look, my heart sped up. With each pin stroke, my heart sped up. Will you go out on a date with me? Yes or no? Circle your answer, please. I remember your hand extended the note back towards me, my fingers greedily reaching.
That day, you passed me that silly heart-shaped sticky note. Your cute nature brings a smile to my face. I see your face past nervous glances. I see you wondering what my stance is. If you really want to know, I'm willing to give this a chance. I circle yes. I go to hand it to you, my heartbeat booming, but boom, but boom, but boom, but boom, 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 boom!
Miss J said, turn the lights off.
Shut the blinds.
She barricaded us in.
For this was not a drill. That was not my heartbeat echoing so loud.
That was the sound of bullets echoing off the ground. I've been in this room 1,000 times in my nightmares. There's a clock, it keeps
Tick,
ticking.
tick, tick, tick,
The
tick.
ticking gets louder, we're running out of time.
Fear surrounds the room, swallowing everyone's breath. If we suck in our Maybe he won't hear the heavy breathing.
I hear someone beating on other people's doors. I hear screams that get silenced by the sounds
Boom,
of
boom,
ripping
boom, boom,
shots.
boom.
The bullets get louder. Whimpers and muffled sobs play melancholy melodies on my ears.
The clock is still ticking. It's dark in here.
That shadow shrouds our eyes, ready to take us to an endless sleep as uncertainties bounce against the walls.
Will we get out?
Is he next door?
Will we live?
What happens if he comes in here?
Will I fight or freeze?
Will his bullets be faster than our actions?
What happens if I die?
What will my mom do if I die?
What happens if you die? Boom, 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 boom!
I scream. I remember someone covering me. Imagine my surprise as I discover that it's you. Soon the bullets cease, but you wouldn't move. I remember your
Warm blood passing through shaking fingers.
The police came in and escorted us out of that room. That stupid clock kept ticking, but you wouldn't move. My heart sped up, but yours wouldn't move. That day, you didn't make it. We never made it on our date. Like Steve Rogers, you're my Captain America that saved me, but instead of sporting red, white, and blue, I'm sporting red as your blood coated the bottom of my shoes.
The first text to my mother read, "Hey Mom, can you pick me up at 3:30? The second read, "I love you." Kids typing out their wills to parents in under 40 characters. Their last words forever ingrained on a screen, and the last words their parents ever get to see. That note you gave me. Marred with bloodstains, yes, but I hope you still take it. You can still see the answer I gave. Yes, I hope it still brings one last smile to your face.
I don't think I'll ever smile again now that I can't see your face. Now I'm angry. Funny thing is, the gun he had was legal, bought at a fair even though he was only 14. Those words echo off the media and children's tongues. Here reads the news headline, another school shooting has occurred and the government is doing nothing. 154, that's the number of mass shootings that occurred in 2018. It happens in an instant, from good morning class to morning the 5th grade graduating class, from that postponed English test to post-traumatic stress.
They say reoccurring dreams happen because something has been left unfinished. Well, when will we wake up and end this reoccurring nightmare? Langston Hughes once asked, what happens to a dream deferred?
Today we ask, when will school shootings actually be deterred?
Thank you, Mayan and Sky. That was moving, and we appreciate your talent and courage. So let's meet the candidates. We sort of heard that our candidate forum might not have been the only one in town in the last few months, and it has been a busy season for all of you, so thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here tonight. As students, Ayelet from Hyman Brand and Anna from University Academy introduce each candidate, please hold your applause until all candidates have been introduced in alphabetical order.
Alicia Kennedy, who will be joining us shortly, we're not, who's here, was assistant prosecuting attorney for Jackson County, and she is now a private attorney in Kansas City's councilwoman in the 5th District.
Next we have Phil Glenn. Phil Glenn is a successful Kansas City small owner, family man, and a member of the board of the Northeast Community Center. He is also elected to the Jackson County Democratic Committee and has served on the Kansas City TIP Commission.
Please hold your applause until the end.
Henry Klein is a previous candidate for Kansas City Mayor and a Bank of America branch manager. He serves as chairman of the Habitat for Humanity Volunteer Committee, and he works with Evening Care, a mentoring program for the developmentally disabled. Vincent Lee is here tonight. Unfortunately, he was unable to submit a bio on time.
Next we have Quentin Lucas. Quentin Lucas became one of the youngest senior track law professors in the country. He is currently a practicing attorney, a lecturer at the University of Kansas School of Law, and he's a Kansas City councilman in the 3rd District.
Scott Taylor is a private attorney in his second term on the Kansas City Council. Oh, never mind. Stephen Miller has worked as a construction attorney for more than 35 years, founding partner of the Miller-Sugar law firm. He helped to found Turning Point, which provides services to those suffering from chronic illness, and he has worked with Christmas in October to improve the homes of the low-income, elderly, and disabled.
Next, we have Jermaine Reed. Jermaine Reed was elected in 2011 and has assumed office as the youngest city council member in Kansas City's history. He continues to serve on his second term as councilman in the 3rd District.
Now, Scott Taylor is a private attorney in his second term on the Kansas City Council representing the 6th District and is credited for introducing the Revive the East Side campaign.
Lastly, we have Scott Wagner, who will be joining us shortly. Scott Wagner has improved the historic Northeast area with his work on the Paseo Gateway, a partnership between the city and Housing Authority. He currently serves as a mayor pro tem, chairman, the City Council, Finance, and the Governance Committee, and Kansas City's councilman in the 1st District.
Thank you, Ayala and Anna. We want to welcome you all to the Helzberg Auditorium of University Academy. Please give a round of applause for all the candidates present here tonight. There are many important issues that we want the candidates to be able to address tonight. Therefore, we ask that each candidate limit their response to each question to 1 minute. Our timekeeper, HBHA senior Austin Klinock, is sitting at the table in front of our stage. Austin will hold up a yellow card to let you know when you have 15 seconds remaining on your time, and a red one will indicate that your time is up. We ask that all the candidates please keep to the time limit because Austin will let you know.
We also want to give you, the audience members, an opportunity to have your voices heard and your questions answered by our candidates today. As you watch tonight's forum, if you have a question that you would like to ask our candidates, please raise your hand and a student will be happy to provide you with a writing utensil and a note card for your question. Can our audience question moderators give us a wave so everyone can see them? Once you have finished writing your question, raise your hand and one of those students will collect your card. Later in the evening, we will ask a select number of those audience questions to the candidates. But first, we would like to give the candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves by answering a simple question. You will each have 1 minute to respond. Using a random selection process that we will continue to use for each round of questions, we have already assigned Quentin Lucas to answer first. Then after Councilman Lucas, we will proceed to his left, down the row, and circle back around to the beginning. The first question is, give us an example from your experience that demonstrates how your leadership style would translate to your role as mayor. So Councilman Lucas, let's hear from you.
Okay, here we are. Good morning, good afternoon rather, or evening. My name is Quentin Lucas. I'm delighted to be with you all today. An example of where my leadership, I think, shows what I would do as mayor or could be like was some of you have probably heard of tax incentives. We use those to try to spur development in certain areas. But one of the challenges with them is that they often divert money away from public schools and other public entities. So several years ago, I thought it was important that we get some real reform. So I introduced an incentive reform ordinance where I visited with the superintendents of 15 different school districts, visited with a number of folks from charter schools, a number of developers, business folks, and others. And we were able to come to compromise over time because we realized we needed to do something for Kansas City. I think showing that you can visit with that many institutions and collaborate and come to some compromise when you start with conflict is a key part of leadership, and I was excited to do it. Good to be with you this evening. I look forward to talking more.
Thank you, Councilman Lucas. Now let's hear from Steve Miller.
Good evening, I'm Steve Miller. About 15 years ago, the city sat at about where we do right now, with a big infrastructure project on the board. That was the Sprint Center at the time. And that's the first time I got to meet Moore Squared, one of our sponsors tonight. because there was concern, as there is today, about inequality in our community. And back then, it was the concern that we were going to spend several $100 million on the Sprint Arena, but the people that were going to build it didn't look like the people that lived in this community. And people like More Squared and the Urban League and the NAACP and the Black ministers stepped up and protested. And I came in to really serve as a mediator, and I brought to the table general contractors, subcontractors, and labor, and other community activists. And we all got together in a room, and I served as mediator to hammer out what became today the workforce ordinance that allowed the Sprint Center to go ahead and be built, but it provided opportunities to minorities and women and people that had been shut out. It's a proud moment for me. It's what I'll do as mayor, is bring all of us together around the table with stakeholders to hammer out our most difficult issues.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Let's move on to Jermaine Reed.
Well, good evening as well to everyone. It's certainly an honor to be here. This is probably one of our largest crowds that we've had, so I'm glad that all of you are here. As you heard in my bio, I was the youngest person ever elected in city history to the city council at the age of 25 years old. And I'll never forget rolling up my sleeves and working hard to move my community forward and walking into a TIF commission meeting, and I was told by the TIF commissioner at that time that this is not a project that we're going to do. And then he proceeded to ask, well, who are you? I said, well, I'm Jermaine Reed, I'm on the city council. He said, well, I have clothes older than you. I said, well, you should go buy some new clothes. But we were able to get the actual grocery store built at 39th and Prospect, and the question is about the experience and what I bring to the table, and that's exactly what it is. I was bold, I was passionate, and I was going to be committed to making sure we had that project built. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about more projects because he's serious down here. He's going to cut me off. I look forward to our discussion a little later this afternoon.
Thank you, Councilman Reed. Now, Scott Taylor, please share your answer. Give us an example from your experience that demonstrates how your leadership style will translate to your role as mayor.
All right, thank you. Great question. I first of all want to thank all the students who organized this event. You've done a great job, so give yourselves a round of applause. And Austin, I don't think I've seen a timekeeper get as many applauses as you just did. So congratulations. Real quick, I will talk about many collaborative efforts I've done on the council over the last 8 years. It's been an honor to serve you. But the East Side Revitalization Plan, I've been on the Economic Development Committee for 8 years. We've got things really going well in a lot of parts of the city. We just need more connectivity of that activity on the east side. So we put together a plan, and I went out and collaborated with all the homes associations in the 3rd District, the 5th District, the 6th District, east of Troost, Prospect Business Association, and others. We formulated a plan over a year and a half and got it passed through the council, but it took a lot of meetings and a lot of time, and I'll be a great listener and great collaborator as your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Taylor. Alicia Kennedy, let's hear from you.
Good evening, everyone. There we go. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Alicia Kane. I'm thankful to have the opportunity to share with you an example of my leadership style and how that will translate to me being as the next mayor of Kansas City is my bold approach of taking stands that are not always popular, but are in the best interest of what the residents want to see happen. An example of that was on the liquor cards. When the industry wanted to remove liquor cards, a number of neighborhood groups had concerns about that, about how that would impact the bars and taverns and public safety. Another issue with Westport, the street privatization. We had an issue of violent crime occurring and guns and weapons being brought into the entertainment district and the public threat that caused. And collectively with my colleagues, we were able to support the privatization of the sidewalks to have the screening. And as a result, there were no additional gun violence acts that occurred in Westport last summer. Additionally, a problem solver with the Love That Neighbor, we found there were seniors that were indigent and had not been able to maintain their properties, and create a program that responded to their needs to make sure they were to stay in their homes. And ultimately, by negotiating community benefit agreements, which also brought resources back to the community as it relates to development projects that may have had incentives on it, where there was a community give back and empowering the communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Kennedy. Phil Glenn, please explain your viewpoint.
Hi, everybody. My name is Phil Glenn, and I spent 4 years on the Tax Increment Financing Commission, or TIF Commission, And the point of view that I brought to that position was the point of view of the taxpayers of Kansas City, which is the taxpayers want our TIF program to be used in truly blighted communities that couldn't get access to capital in any other way. Unfortunately, what I saw on the TIF Commission too often was TIF being used to benefit communities that were already succeeding and subsidizing corporations that were already doing very well. We did some things on the commission I was proud of. We did a new grocery store at 39th and Prospect. It's exactly the kind of thing we should be doing with our TIF program. But too often I saw dollars going to parts of Kansas City that were already succeeding and corporations that were already doing well. And when that happened, I stood up and opposed it. My consistent opposition to the abuse of the TIF program in Kansas City actually caused the same mayor that appointed me to the commission to pull me off that commission. But I share that with you to let you know that my leadership style is this. I believe that we have major changes coming in our future in Kansas City, and that the only way we're going to get through them and come out stronger on the other side is if we all start standing up for what we believe and saying what we think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Mr. Klein, how will your leadership style translate to your role as mayor?
So as y'all know, I work at Bank of America at 63rd and Prospect. And let me tell you something, that's the best branch of Bank of America you could possibly hope to work at. When I first came to that branch, I came on the same day that my assistant manager also came to that branch. The manager's office was way in the back in the corner. It was a big size office, had all sorts of extra amenities to it, what have you, whereas the assistant manager's office was really near where all the action happens within the branch. And the first thing I told my assistant managers were trading offices. I need to be where my customers are. I need my customers to walk into my office every single day, or me be out on the floor talking to my customers, because that's what brings me closer together with those folks. And let me tell you something else that I've learned. Many of my customers may very well not ever get told, thank you. Thank you for your business. Thank you for being here. Do you know the kind of smiles that elates when you treat people with respect like that? That's what my leadership style is about, and that's what I would want to bring to City Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Now, Mr. Lee, we'd like to hear from you.
Good evening, Kansas City. It's nice to see you all. First, I want to thank you all for calling me and all the many people who gave me their warm wishes about me not participating in the debate because I was denied that at the Mayoral Hotel. Now, my style is 28 years of experience going way back as far as Berkeley. We know the ins and outs. We know what it takes. I know the suffering of the people from the state line with taxes on their properties of $18,000 plus to closing down the schools in Kansas City. I am here to propose to the whole city of Kansas City and the people in Clay County that we must move that airport inside of Jackson County. That way we can save our schools, we can create new jobs, move the stadium, bring them downtown Kansas City. These things are reality. So I want you to know, y'all listen real close to what I have to say. I want you to know that I am Vincent Lee. They call me the general. I love you all, and let's have a great time in this city and build it together.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
We will now shift to a somewhat unorthodox activity, but we think it will be fun and interesting. Each candidate is receiving a piece of poster board along with 6 strips of paper, each stating a critical issue facing the Kansas City community as determined by students in Future Votes KC. Candidates, you will have a minute to tape these issue strips on your poster board in order of importance, placing the issue you see as most critical at the top. Then, Anna and Ayala will place your poster board so the audience can review your choices. You will then each have 1 minute to explain the rationale behind your top choice. When you're ready, candidates, start ranking. And audience, just to remind you all, Future Votes KC students will now be coming around to collect the index cards with your questions. Once you have finished writing your question, please raise your hands and one of our students will collect your card. Later in the program, we will ask the candidates a select number of those audience questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
You have 15 seconds.
All right, guys, your time is up. Please finish up whatever you are doing. Thank you very much. So right now there's gonna post the boards in full view of you guys so you can just see what they ranked. So give us just a little bit of time to do that.
Sure can.
Get the music to just turn off, please. Thank you. We are ready to start. All right, so we're gonna start with Phil Glenn while the rest are finishing up. I see that you already have yours up. So if you could just state your top choice so everyone can know what that is, and then explain in 1 minute why that was your top choice.
Hi, again, the name's Phil Glenn. The number one concern that we have as a community and the number one challenge we have that's a barrier between us and the kind of success that all of us want to see is the unacceptable level of violence in this community. And we need to recognize that the violence in our community and the failure of our economy, that those two things are fundamentally linked. We need to build affordable housing so that families in Kansas City can put down roots. We need to bring in quality jobs so that people can be successful in the 21st century economy, and we need to make sure we're delivering excellent basic city services in every neighborhood of Kansas City, because when we don't do those things, we create an environment in which crime can thrive. I have experience in the private sector as a business owner, having built thousands of homes and created thousands of jobs by investing in the kinds of things that we need more of in Kansas City. Grocery stores in our food deserts, child care centers so that parents can have a reliable safety net to allow them to succeed in their career, and a transportation system that gets our workers to jobs. I believe if we make progress on those fronts, then community leaders working together with law enforcement will make progress on this very important issue.
All right, Henry Klein, please state your top choice and explain in 1 minute why that was your top choice.
All right, so I went with gun violence as well. I'm the branch manager at Bank of America 63rd and Prospect. Since I've been there in the last 2.5 years, somebody's been shot and killed at 63rd and Prospect, somebody's been shot and killed at Meyer and Prospect. We see violence in the neighborhoods that I serve every single day. And if I see it, imagine what the children see, imagine what their parents see, imagine what's going on there. So I proposed 2 things, actually, as part of a 3-plank plan. The third one may not have as much influence over the first two. First is going to be that we have to have local control of the police department. Why is that? It can take 5 minutes or more just to get them to respond and answer the phone. It can take even longer than that to get them to get to where we're at. If that's the case, what we deal with, imagine what the people who live there with. The priorities of Kansas City need to be the priorities of the police department, not the reverse. Did you know that we are the only city in the United States that does not have local control of our police department? That's either an incredibly brilliant idea or a really bad one. I think the results show that it's a bad one. There's time for change.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Vincent Lee, please state your top choice and explain why that was your top choice.
My topic is dealing with the taxes. You don't get the taxes right, everything else is going to collapse. Taxation without representation, which we don't have proper representation in the city government today, it affects us all. When we vote no, and they continue to do the same thing, that's not representation, that's a force will of the people who control our tax dollars. I chose that because I know that our KC, Missouri Police Department is a very fine police department. I'm a man of 63 years of age, and I understand if everybody want to get control of the Kansas City Police Department, but if your local authorities is failing and doing the things they're supposed to do, how are you going to control the police department? Let the police department stay right where they're at until we get things figured out what's going on with those who call the shots. One of the most important things, taxation is very important to be successful. Overtaxation will kill everything in your community. That's everything. And crime will go up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Quentin Lucas, please share your top choice and explain in 1 minute why that was your choice.
So I joined those who mentioned gun violence as a key issue. And I come at it from two different directions. First of all, when you think about great American cities, when are great American cities held back? For example, if any of you have ever visited Baltimore, Baltimore is an exciting place. It has Camden Yards. It has all types of things. But it also had more than 300 homicides last year in a city of 600,000 people. That's tragic. That leads people to move away. That leads to disinvestment. That leads to a lack of investment and concern in the neighborhoods. You cannot be a great American city if you do not address your violent crime problem. Let's go closer to home in St. Louis, and we see much the same concern. And one reason that I think it's so important is because generation after generation have dealt with this. It's now been a few years since I've been in high school, but I remember living not far from here, a little bit east, and actually seeing a murder next door to me, and realizing that that's something that sticks with the neighborhood and sticks with the community. It's vital that we address that long term, and it's vital that we address our gun violence problem in our community.
Thank you, Councilman Lucas. Steve Miller, please state your top choice and explain in a minute why that was your top choice.
Yeah. Well, among the choices we were given, I too selected crime, particularly violent crime. The fundamental obligation of a city is to provide a safe community. And if we don't do that, we're failing our people. And it's also one of those things that there are really tough issues that we're going to depend upon Jefferson City and upon Washington, D.C. But so much on the crime front we can attack right here. And it's understanding the sources of crime, both those acute, those are the short-term ones and the long-term ones. Bottom line, a lot of crime results from hopelessness, where people are not engaged in the life of the community and are marginalized and turn to crime. Others are caused by mental illness, and we have to do a better job, and we can do that locally. And still others are from domestic abuse. We have to do a better job in our homes, protecting women, making certain they have a safe place. All those things that we can do, we can tackle here so that we are both a better place to live in for all of us, but we can also build that 21st century that's attractive to talent and businesses to come here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Councilman Reed, please state your top choice and explain in a minute why that was your top choice.
Thank you. I too selected gun violence, and I'm reminded of the poetry slam in which we heard earlier at the start of this program about school shootings and making sure that we're finding real solutions. For me, I agree with much of has been stated from many of my peers here on the dais about gun violence, but I don't approach this from just a pure numbers standpoint. I approach this from a very personal standpoint, from someone who has had a family member that has been lost to gun violence. Just recently, a family member who has been in a brawl with someone and almost lost their life literally 3 weeks ago. And so we have to find real concrete solutions from mental health, community policing, making sure that we're doing things to help folks be able to prevent the type of situations that they find themselves in, and coming up with real concrete solutions to address this as a community. And as mayor, I'm committed to certainly doing that and making sure that we can address this being a top issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Reed. Scott Taylor, please share your top choice and explain in 1 minute why that was your top choice.
All right, thank you. I also chose reducing violent crime in our community. That is our number one responsibility as a city. And I think we need more community policing, which will require more police officers to actually be hired to do that. Otherwise, they're running from call to call to call. Now, I want to explain my artistic work up here on the poster board. While I have crime number one, the next mayor really is going to have to be multitasking and working on all these issues at the same time, because a lot of these issues like affordable housing, revitalizing neighborhoods, all tie into the reducing violent crime issue. It's a very holistic approach we have to take. So that is why I have them all equal as issues. But reducing violent crime is number one, and we can do better as a city. We have done better just a few years ago, so we just need to keep working on these new programs that we're implementing right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Taylor. Alicia Kennedy, please state your top choice. Explain in a minute why was the top choice.
Again, thank you so much. We're going to share this mic like we did last night. All right. Well, again, my name is Alicia Kennedy, and I serve currently as the chair of the Public Safety Committee on the City Council. And as many of my colleagues have mentioned on here, gun violence not only is the number one issue, I like to offer that I'm the most experienced to be able to address it. As a former assistant prosecutor in Jackson County, not only did I prosecute gun crimes, I represented victims. And when we talk about the issue, it's gun violence and homicide. They're two separate things. While we had 135 homicides last year, the number of aggravated assaults, meaning bullet to skin wounds, were almost 3 times that number. So we're having a huge problem with people using weapons to solve their problems. How many legal gun owners are in this room? I'll raise my hand. So the gun in of itself is not the problem. We have to be willing to deal with the individuals. And as I've said consistently, the issues we have to address are hopelessness, mental health, and substance abuse, people dealing with addiction. And so I believe as we are intentional about providing those resources and deal with people intentionally and as proactively as we do it with law enforcement, we'll begin to see a reduction in the behaviors that lead to gun violence as it inflicts harm on our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Kennedy, and thank you to all the candidates for your thoughtful rankings.
Now we will switch gears and ask the candidates some questions that students from Future Votes KC have researched and formulated over the past few months. Each candidate will again have a minute to answer the question, so please keep to the time limit. Based on our random selection process, Alicia Kennedy will start us off with the first question from Hyman Brand Senior, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Seidel from Hyman Brand. Schools around the country have increased security and safety training for teachers and students, as well as resources related to mental health services and awareness. How will you improve school safety, specifically in communities with less resources to spend on such initiatives?
As the next mayor, my number one priority is to make sure we're creating an environment where we're raising strong children. In order to do that, we have to make sure that we are providing necessary resources, number one, to protect the tax revenue of the school districts. I'm a strong supporter of public schools, and we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can, not only to protect their revenue, but also doing what we need to do after the kids go home to make sure they have affordable housing and safe communities. I think the objective there is to make sure that when children are in the learning environment, they have the tools and resources to be successful, which means making sure we're doing enough to make sure the parents have economic opportunities, to make sure they would provide for their children in a healthy, stable environment, and also making sure there's enough mental health resources and social supports with youth programming to make sure you're addressing children that have been exposed to trauma and have experienced adverse childhood experiences. I believe that is a priority of this city for us to make sure that we're growing together and make sure that we're attributing to a most viable workforce. There's studies in like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where many employers have realized on the back end 20, 30 years later of their inability to attract and retain skilled workforce because of the underlying issues of social violence in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Kennedy. Now Phil Glenn.
Hi again, the name's Phil Glenn. I think when it comes to making sure we have enough money to secure all of our schools, it's like any other aspect of education funding in Kansas City. When we use our TIF and tax incentive and tax abatement programs in areas where we shouldn't, areas that don't really need the money, we're taking money away from our public schools for a reason that is not valid in my opinion. So I think that in general, when it comes to adequately funding education, we need to make sure we're much more strategic about how we use our TIF and tax incentive programs. But again, this is a little bit like the questions we've gotten on these panels before about funding for the police department. Obviously, it's important to have enough officers in neighborhoods so that people feel safe. But whether it's in a classroom or on the street in Kansas City, we will not become a truly safe community until we are an economically just city. And that means affordable housing, quality jobs, and excellent basic city services in every neighborhood in Kansas City. Thanks for your question.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Now, Henry Klein.
So let me be clear. So let me be clear. So let me be clear. All right, so let me be clear. I'm the underdog in this campaign. We've raised very little money. We're not going to try to raise a lot of money because we're not going to go from the special interest groups, because what the special interest groups want to try to stop is local control of the police department. We could talk about having more officers. You'll give me a few more seconds, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm pausing it with it. Yeah.
We can talk about having more officers at schools, but that's never going to happen if our priorities are not the police department's priorities. We give $270 million to the police department every year, and yet we can't establish what those priorities are. The first priority I've outlined is we've got to have fast response. We cannot have this 30 and 45 minutes before somebody gets to a crime scene or a potential crime scene. But the second thing that I want to talk about, and so the idea of having officers in schools is not going to happen unless we have local control. And you want to know where the divide on local control is? The elderly population here in Kansas City typically goes against it. But the young kids, the kids and our students and our kids here in Kansas City, they applaud it because they want to see change. They want to see innovation here in Kansas City. At some point, I'm going to have to weave in here what schools are about and what we talk about in my campaign with schools, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Now, Vincent Lee, please share your answer.
Once again, we're talking about our taxes. Taxes are very important to any city structure. So we'll take our largest assets to KCI Airport. We have to move it inside Jackson County to keep the county strong. I have told you once before that we buy stocks and bonds in that new airport as low as $100. Every city in Jackson County will be able to invest. They got to use their bonds and things to build the airport, as well as the county. We come to the school, July the 6th of 07. I was one to file a federal lawsuit in federal court before Fernando J. Guytown stopped him for closing the school, stopped the endless of violence and stuff. He refused to entertain that lawsuit. It's filed. We talk about the environment. They throw flash in Briarcliff for the last 22, 23 years. They threw asbestos out of the Argyle building, contaminated all of downtown Kansas City. We addressed those issues. The current council, the past council, nobody want to address it. I love you all.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Now, Quentin Lucas.
Thank you. I want to agree with what my colleagues started with relating to making sure we're adequately funding education. On the Kansas side, actually, when public schools disagree with tax incentives and tax incentive policy, they actually have a veto. So in Blue Valley, Shawnee Mission, all those places, they actually get to say no, whereas in Kansas City, Missouri, we typically just tell all of our districts, deal with it, and we'll make the choice for you. That's not right. That's why I've worked on reform. And one of the biggest reasons behind tax incentive reform to make sure schools could do what they needed to do was I remember a conversation with the superintendent at Raytown Public Schools. And he said, every morning I'm worrying about getting transportation for my kids, getting breakfast for my kids and lunch, and an afternoon snack or meal so that they can actually be healthy, so they can deal with a number of issues. We need to make sure our tax dollars go to help support social services often that are in the schools themselves, and make sure we're working collaboratively with our school districts to ensure we're addressing long-term mental health, counseling, and frankly, community needs that they all need.
Thank you, Councilman Lucas. Now Steve Miller.
Again, I'm Steve Miller, and the question was, what can we as a city do to provide increased safety and mental health in our schools? Well, first of all, as we know, we have 15 independent school districts here in Kansas City, elected by their own boards with their own superintendents, plus we have a number of private schools and charter schools. And so the first thing we need to do is there needs to be adequate funding and give each school and each district the opportunity to fashion whatever program is appropriate for their district or for their school. But what we can do as a city is be good partners with our education community. And that means we have to model and continue to work to create a safer community. So that means strengthening our neighborhoods and building the trust with law enforcement so that we have smart policing and we can model what needs to be done. We also need to have a mayor that needs to model, we need to be a kinder city. We need to work on learning how to control anger, de-escalate, and resolve our disputes. And that starts with a leader that exemplifies that on a city council. And then we have to continue to fund mental health through Truman Medical Center, which is our only safety net hospital in the state.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Now, Jermaine Reed.
So when you go last, much of what you're going to say is pretty much taken up because the reality of it is I agree with much of what has been said. What I will do is drill down just a little bit on Kansas City public school system because since 1966, there has not been a mill levy increase for the school district. And we have to do everything that we can to making sure that the school districts do have adequate funding so that we're able to do a number of things that we are responsible for. Sarah, to the heart of your question, the reality of it is that you and your peers, all of you that are here, should be worried about education. And when you come into the doors like this school or schools throughout this entire city, the number one thing that you should be on your mind is making sure that you're getting a good education, learning as much as you possibly can to become a very productive citizen in this community. And it's important for us as leaders in the community to make sure that we're ensuring that everything else is taken care of so that you guys don't have to worry about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Reed. Now Scott Taylor.
All right, thank you. So your question was on, thank you.
You're good. Third time a charm. There we go. 15 seconds.
All right. Thank you. Austin, your question was on school safety, and that's an important question because we haven't had that at many of the forums, so I'm glad you asked it. And I want to just address it a couple ways. One, I agree with a lot that's been said, but we had about a year ago several schools walk out and protest gun violence in the country, and so I was honored to join St. Teresa's. I was invited there, Southeast, met the students of Lincoln Prep on the steps of City Hall with the mayor. And I was so impressed with the thoughtfulness of the students. One of the things we did right after that was put together a resolution where we have a great school safety training program for schools. A lot of schools didn't know it was available. So we directed the city manager to reach out, provide it. It's a free service that the police department has. And so that's one thing we've done just in the last few months. We need to do more with our 15 school districts, though, and supplement and assist and funding public health and mental health is very important as well, and that's something we can do through additional funding. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer, Councilman Taylor. Mr. Miller, by random selection, you will answer first for this next question, and you will have 1 minute to do so. So Shayana from University Academy, let's hear the next question.
Hi, my name is Shayana Thatcher, and my question is, What specifically are you planning to do economically to benefit the communities east of Truce? Mr. Miller, you're first.
So too, okay. Again, Steve Miller. An excellent question, because we talk about our city currently having momentum and being a city that's prospering, but it's clear that not everyone here is. So to be able to transfer that prosperity throughout our entire city, it's going to take an intentional effort by our mayor to not only put into place policies and investments that will encourage private enterprise to invest in that. We have to remember is that government is not going to be able to solve the type of investment needs that we need in the city. There's not enough money up here that any of us could marshal. But it's going to be through good policy and having the depth of relationships in a business community in which we can make a business case that long term we are going to be a stronger, better city if we encourage diversity and equity, which goes to and inclusion, which is everybody in the opportunity. That comes from strong policy and drawing in our business community and our not-for-profit community to form those partnerships and execute on concrete plans to move forward other parts of our city.
Thank you very much. I just want to note real quick, just to let you guys know, that Councilman Scott Wagner has joined us this evening. He's right at the end of the stage, so thank you. All right, Councilman Reed, go ahead.
So the question about economic development east of Truce, I've had the good fortune over the past 8 years serving on the city council representing the 3rd District, which pretty much encompasses much of the area that you referenced in your question, Cheyenne. And for me, it is important that we continue moving forward and building our community, not just, of course, with bricks and mortar, but being intentional with equitable development throughout the entire city. I have done that. I think it was the first answer that I recited when the question was asked about 39th and Prospect. I can go up the street to 31st and Prospect. I can go along the entire Prospect corridor with the Prospect Max, a $54 million project that is transforming the entire community there. And I think we as a community and a city council have to continue to work extremely hard and be intentional about ensuring that this work is done. And I think that much of my work on the city council the past 8 years will show how I, as mayor, will certainly be intentional, leading with a sense of urgency to do that.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Scott Taylor.
All right, thank you. So, very great question. It's going to be up to the students to keep city leaders accountable for that exact question moving forward. We have a lot of momentum in a lot of parts of the city. We have some great things that have been done. I'll give Councilman Reed and Lucas credit for their work in the 3rd District, Councilman Kennedy in the 5th District, but there's not that same connectivity we're seeing in other parts of the city. So that's one of the reasons I took the last 2 years to work on this East Side Revitalization Plan, to get that discussion going, to get programs going, and we met with neighborhood leaders all throughout 3rd, 5th, and 6th District and put together a comprehensive package that the council supported. That's the beginning. We need to continue that, though, over the next, we have a new council coming on board. We need to make sure that that continues. The next mayor has that same vision. And so I will definitely have that vision, because in order for our city to say it's really succeeding as a city, we need all neighborhoods to be succeeding and feel that momentum. And in order to do that, we need to give a little boost to the east side with some of these initiatives. So, thank you.
Thank you. Scott Wagner, go ahead.
Thank you, and I apologize for being late. I had a constituent group meeting north of the river, and I've had that on the calendar since December, and so I thank you for your indulgence in allowing me to be late. To answer your question, I think it's not just a matter of can you get development to the east side, it is who is doing the development on the east side, right? The idea that it's not just someone who has deep pockets who can come in, but that you're also providing an opportunity for those developers of color to have an opportunity to develop in the very neighborhoods that they came from. Over the past couple of years, I have worked with a group or with a program called REAP. It's the Real Estate Apprenticeship Program. It is a national program in 9 cities. We brought it to Kansas City 2 years ago, and then we expanded it to Kansas City, Kansas just this past year. We have had 40 people locally of color who have gone through that program, and the whole idea is that they have an opportunity, if they are interested in development or property management, to work with those doing it now. And now the next step that we're going to take is to actually show them opportunities on the east side where they can actually get involved, do $500,000, $1 million projects, $2 million projects, so that they can do the big projects that we need on the east side. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your answer. Oh, that's right. Lizzie Kennedy. Almost forgot you. Apologize.
One of the good mics. I mean, again, as being the last person, you have a lot of discussion, but when it comes to development on the east side, what we have to talk about is what does it look like holistically to create economic opportunities across all parts of Kansas City. One of the biggest challenges that we've had as we built up one part of the city while we neglected so many others. And so my approach is to looking at where are the real opportunities for us to have catalytic impact and leveraging that with opportunity funds and the opportunity zones to bring in some additional dollars to encourage development in areas that have been overlooked. Then we also have to look at our economic development policies and make sure that we're not continuing to incentivize areas such as downtown and Crossroads that have already been built up and well established, because we need to encourage developers to look at other parts of the city, whether it be north of the river or east of Truce. We have to look at how we're creating a cohesive ecosystem, because the goal is to create economic opportunities across all parts. Because even though I live in South Kansas City, I go to church north of the river, my business is on the west side of town, and my family's on the east side of town. So it doesn't matter where you live, you want to be able to realize the economic impact, and it comes from policies, investments, and being intentional about the development opportunities.
Thank you. Mr. Glenn.
The frustration I hear from taxpayers and voters who I speak with is this, that for too long, the economic development conversation in Kansas City has been all about buildings. Economic development isn't about investing in buildings. Economic development is about investing in people. I know this as a business owner. In my business, we pay our people a living wage. Nobody at our business makes less than $15 an hour. We provide access to on-site childcare, and we invest in our workers' ongoing skill development. Because we've done those things, our business has grown. If we do that as a city, our community will grow. And we need to recognize that this isn't all just about access to capital for real estate projects. The major economic barrier that Kansas City faces is this. We have parts of our city where unemployment is concentrated, yet at the same time, we have thousands of jobs available. What's keeping our citizens from this opportunity? 2 things: a lack of job skill training, workforce development, and a reliable transportation network that gets our citizens to work. So if we're serious about investing in our east side or any side of Kansas City, we have to start by investing in our people through workforce development and reliable transportation that gets our citizens to work.
Thank you. Mr. Klein.
When I go to these forums, what I hear is all these specialized programs people talk about, and they feel very one-offish, if you will. I also want to talk about the importance of now. Barack Obama talked about that in his campaign, and it's so vital in what I'm talking about as well. Schools here in Kansas City, schools on the east side. I work on the east side. I see this every day, and I can tell you very little economic development is going on from Truce on eastward. So what needs to happen? It's the block and tackle things. Our people have to be safe, but we also have to have schools. So and you'll hear me all night long talk about specifics, I'm proposing an Office of Education at City Hall, not just a mayoral's advisor, but an Office of Education to work with all 15 districts. But let's speak specifically about Kansas City Public Schools. We need to be innovative. All y'all know who LeBron James is. We need to bring the I Promise School to Kansas City. Does everybody know what that I Promise School is? It is a holistic approach to deal with kids that are at risk. It deals with their parents who need jobs. It deals with all the other types of risks and problems that they're dealing with. We've got to bring that kind of innovation to Kansas City and spread it out throughout the city. Get education and safety right, and we can go elsewhere.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mr. Lee?
Okay, you heard me talking about the airport. You heard me talking about taking KCI, turn to a military Air Force base. Okay, now let's talk about our 2 stadiums We take the stadiums off the county ground, move them to Truman Road, what they call Martin Luther King now. That is stimulate the growth east of Troops. It'll also keep downtown strong. We got a strong tax base. We'll shoot straight south to 95th and Troops. I'm already working with people in Washington, D.C., do an aluminum plant and a steel plant. More money, taxes coming into the city of Kansas City. We take where old General Motor plant was down in Leeds down there. Trump got turfs on all the automakers. They're trying to get in the United States. I want one of them automakers to be right there, come and retool down the place down there. Then we take the ground we move the stadium from, we put in that place another car plant. Kansas City, it's about taxes. No money, you're broke, your city's in trouble. They're taking your money away from you. You got to have a strong tax base to pay your people and create a safe, healthy environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Lucas.
I remember the question. It's East Side Development. I got some new ideas, and I'll say this, though, in connection with what we're trying to do. The question isn't East Side, West Side, Northland, anything of the sort. It's about poverty, and it's about how we can create pathways out of poverty for people. Too often in Kansas City, poverty is centralized in certain core areas, and it has been for generations. So in addition to our poverty conversation, we need to have a realistic conversation on race. And I think if we start to talk about those two issues, we need to see how we can pass more policies that create greater access to credit, access to capital for poorer people in Kansas City. How can we build wealth in poorer communities? One way to do that is helping people transition from renting in their homes to home ownership, something that myself, Councilman Wagner, have talked about with housing policy. And I think fundamentally what we need to do is make sure that we have good policies that a poor person or a poor family anywhere can get access to transportation, can get access to skills training, and can get access to that housing that is key to building a stronger future.
Thank you, Councilman Lucas, for your answer. For this next question, we ask the candidates to also answer in 1 minute. Scott Taylor, the next question will start with you and will come from Tamaya from University Academy.
Hi, I'm Tamaya Gibson. What new ideas do you have to reduce homicide and crime in Kansas City during your term?
All right. Very important question. Thank you for asking. We have had this discussion a lot before these forums started, and so I'll go back a year. During the last budget, I advocated for more police officers because, quite frankly, in talking to police officers, if you have a conversation, you hear how they're going from event to crime to crime. We don't have time for community policing, so we need to. I need another microphone here. Oh, it's working now. Okay. Okay. So we need more police officers. I don't think we're there yet, even with the 23 we added last year. I think we need more in this budget, and we'll be having that discussion during the budget discussions. But we've added social workers in our police stations. We need to see that seems to be working very well. They can match existing social services both for students and for those that are at risk for crime or committing a crime. We think that will pay dividends. That'll take a little more time. We also added more 911 call takers to reduce the call time so that police can get to the crime scene more quickly and apprehend anybody before they commit another crime. So there are a variety of things we need to do. Community policing, though, is the key. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Taylor. Now, Councilman Wagner.
So solving this in 1 minute is pretty tough. So I'm going to tell you, first, we do need more officers on the street. We are having a jail conversation that I'm talking about right now. We do need to do preventative measures, but I'm going to focus on one number. That number is 82, and the year of that number is 2013. That is the lowest number of homicides we have had in about 40 years. And I will suggest to everybody in this room that the reason why that number went low was because that was the first year that KC Nova took place, that focused deterrence model. And when it happened, people thought, oh my gosh, something's going to happen to me. And I believe that is one of the reasons why we dropped so far down. But when nothing happened, because of a lack of prosecution and a lack of actually putting the bad people where they needed to be, and they came back out on the streets into neighborhoods, it suggested that there was no consequence. And as a result, last year, 136 homicides. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Wagner. Councilwoman Alicia Kennedy.
Thank you. I love going after him with that answer. As a former assistant prosecutor in Jackson County, I almost feel like I'm taking up for Gene when I answer this question. But it's really not about the prosecutor. The reality is I left the prosecutor's office to come to city council because the issue is not crime and police. That's not the answer, reducing crime. The issue is blighting communities, limited education opportunities, limited economic opportunities, people dealing with mental health and substance abuse, dealing with addiction. That's what the real issue is. And so if you're driven by addiction, you're more inclined to make poor choices and commit crimes to feed your bad habit. If you're dealing with mental health issues, you're not making rational decisions. Those are not things the prosecutor has control over. The city council does. We have a mental health fund that we continue to divert revenue from when we issue incentives in this city. We have the health levy, which does not permit allowing using those dollars for mental health services. So we need to expand the language of the health levy in Kansas City for us to allow us to support those services, to treat those people that are dealing with dual diagnosis. We have to put more money in the budget for program for youth services. Those are things we do to reduce crime. It's not always police and giving money to them. It's investing in the people so they have more opportunities to make better choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Kennedy. Now, Mr. Glenn.
This is about economics. So the number that we're focused on, and we should be, is we lost 136 Kansas Cityans to homicide last year. So what are the numbers that are causing that? Here's the first one to think about. 47% of Kansas Cityans rent their home. 49% of that population is paying more than a third of their income in rent. So if you're wondering why, as you drive through our central city, you see the possessions of evicted families piled up on curbs, it's because the lack of affordable housing in Kansas City is destabilizing families. A lack of quality jobs is making the problem worse. So here's another number to think about. Region-wide, unemployment looks pretty good. It's only 3.5%. The problem is, once you start diving neighborhood by neighborhood, looking at the statistics in the neighborhoods in the core of Kansas City, that number jumps to 20, 30, and in a few isolated cases, more than 50%, if you count people who are unemployed or not in the labor force together. And the last number that's driving that unacceptable number of 136 homicides is this. Public transportation in Kansas City only reaches 18% of the jobs. Economically healthy communities are safe communities. And until we address this lack of skills training and transportation to get our workers to the job, we will not become safer as Kansas City.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Now, Mr. Klein.
So often I feel like when I come to these forums that I'm the one guy fighting for the lost causes, whether it be having local control of the police department so that we can do the kind of things, and as much as I absolutely deeply admire Alicia, I think it's both. I think she's right, but I think it's both. I think it's got to be police, and I think it's got to be all the other things that she's talked about at the same time. But we have got to have that local control. But secondarily to that, we have got to have schools that make sense, that work for our people here in Kansas City. It is those two things that come together that are going to make a difference. One of the things that worries me and what upsets me is when I have somebody sit in my office last Friday, and he tells me that he works for the city. He tells me that they have a dispatch device that gets them to City Hall, gets them to the police department faster than anybody else. He told me they saw a violent crime situation getting ready to happen. He said, we called. It took 45 minutes for for the police to get there, and once they did, a homicide had occurred. So when I talk about this, I don't want to arrest our way out of it. I agree with Alicia. I don't think that's the way to do it. What I'm talking about is getting our priorities to be the police department's priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Now, Mr. Lee.
Okay, Kansas City, we're talking about crime. How can you get involved? One, you have to have a full-time working mayor. You have to have a full-time council, not a part-time council. You have to meet on a day-to-day basis with those who control your law enforcement, your county attorney office. You have to work together to solve the crime. You're not going to solve all the time. You got all type of crimes. You got them in white-collar crime. They're the most dangerous one of all to your payroll and your taxes. But now, I lost a child in 1972. She was turning 2 years old. She was born in 1970. I lost a brother to violent crime in 77. I lost a whole host of friends in this great city. So if anybody understand what death is, it's truly I. So if we're going to do great things together, we have to join hands and start pointing and start engaging with a strong mayor and a council that works around the clock and not part-time. You need a strong city manager not wearing 3 hats. My reply to Charles Show, I'm going to get rid of him. I'm making that plain to everybody. He's out of there. He's out of bounds.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Now, Councilman Lucas.
To me, so much of this and everything that people have said is right, because it's both the short-term intervention approach and it's also a long-term, how do we get economic development? How do we build up our community? But I think at the core, it's a story of hope, right? I grew up poor, but I was blessed with an outstanding education, which meant that I had so many different opportunities and so many things I was looking forward to every day. Right now in our community, there are too many people, there are too many teenagers, there are too many young men that feel like there is no hope for them long term. And so I think my first activity would be, how do we intervene when somebody's making that life choice down the wrong path? How can we create more job opportunities, particularly in the core of the city? You know, we do a lot of economic development on the edges. We do economic development downtown. How do we build up the Prospect Corridor? It's not just about transit, although that's part of it. It's making sure that we're using our tools to attract people into the core of the city, to make sure that we're giving that hope, to make sure we're giving somebody that opportunity that says, I do have something to look forward to. I do have a life worth living.
Thank you, Councilman Lucas. Now, Steve Miller.
I have a three-pronged plan. Here we go in 1 minute. Citywide initiatives. We need to reduce response times. We need to enhance our community policing. We need to support mental health. We need to be further developing our re-entry programs. We need targeted development that brings stability to neighborhoods. We need to provide effective housing, and we need to align with our community organizations like Ad Hoc and Aim for Peace. Those are the citywide initiatives. Customized neighborhood initiatives that include identifying neighborhood assets, in particular gathering spaces where communities can organize, instituting block captains, encouraging neighborhood engagement with the police, and encouraging our businesses to adopt a neighborhood where they can bring resources. And finally, the third thing, we need to support those that we want to support us, our law enforcement officers, paying attention to officer well-being, in particular mental health, providing for diversity and inclusion and encouraging people to police the areas where they live, and finally, providing professional training in things like de-escalation techniques. In 1 minute, how to approach crime.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And Councilman Reed.
So, Tamara, thank you for your question.
Tamaya.
Tamaya?
Yes.
Excuse me, I apologize. Ms. Gibson, thank you for your question. You heard a lot from many of my colleagues here on the stage, and I too agree that there is not a one-size-fit-all solution to this. But I can tell you, as the next mayor of this city, it is important that, as we talked about with our exercise earlier, that we do address everything possible, do everything we can to address this issue. Gun violence, we have to make sure that we're advocating at a state level for common sense gun laws. We have to ensure that we're working in a very holistic approach as it relates to education and working with our school districts to be able to address those education for everyone. But we also got to make sure that we're stabilizing all of our housing. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we as a community have to really work hard to make sure that we're addressing this. And it's not just us as talking heads up here, it's you out there in the audience as well. And many of the organizations that also work on the front lines to really address this issue, we have to expand on the work that they're doing to really improve our community, one child, one family, one neighborhood at a time.
Thank you, Councilman Reed, for your thoughtful answer tonight.
For the next portion of our forum, we have another treat for the candidates. Each candidate is going to receive a green and a red card. A series of 6 agree/disagree statements will be read by students Tessa Blythe and Natalie Bell. For each statement, we ask the candidates to simply hold up the green card if they agree with the statement, or the red card if they disagree with the statement. Remember, for this round of questions, you do not get to defend your answer, but green means agree and red means disagree. Okay, so let's hear the first statement from Tessa from University Academy.
Hello, Tessa over here. All right, to start off, now that medical marijuana is legal in Missouri, Kansas City should take the lead in pushing for full legalization of recreational marijuana. Agree or disagree?
All right, Natalie Bell.
Hi, I'm Natalie. Kansas City, both the government and law enforcement should not assist ICE and should take efforts to protect undocumented immigrants. Agree or disagree?
Thank you very much.
Alrighty. Kansas City should take all legal measures possible, including challenging state and federal guidelines to restrict the number and or types of guns that are purchased within city limits. Agree or disagree?
Thank you very much.
Kansas City is the only large municipality in the United States that doesn't control its own police department. The current process of choosing our police board commission is conducted by the Missouri governor. This process should not be changed. Agree or disagree?
Should not.
Should not be changed. Kansas City is the only large municipality in the United States that doesn't control its own police department. The current process of choosing our police board commission is conducted by the governor. This process should not be changed. Agree or disagree?
Thank you very much. Tessa.
Alrighty then. There is a racial profiling problem in Kansas City and not enough police accountability for improper targeting of race. Agree or disagree?
Thank you very much. Natalie.
The sales tax increase for citywide pre-K education is a worthwhile effort to help close the persistent achievement gap between students from different ethnic and socioeconomic backgrounds. Agree or disagree? The sales tax increase for citywide pre-K education is a worthwhile effort to help close the persistent achievement gap between students from different ethnic and socioeconomic backgrounds. Agree or disagree?
Please raise your cards.
The question is also behind you.
Okay, well, thank you to those who raised. Appreciate that.
Thank you to all the candidates for sticking with us thus far and responding to the statements. We'd now like to hear a couple of questions from our audience. Once again, candidates must keep answers to 1 minute. Our random generator has picked Councilman Scott Wagner to go first. Reading this question tonight is Gabi from Hyman Brand. Hello, I'm reading on behalf of the audience. Okay. As mayor, how will you assure that property owners and neighborhood associations follow proper procedures and ordinances?
Well, as someone who was a former neighborhood president, this is actually a pretty important question and one that I dealt with back when I was president of the Indian Mound neighborhood. Even in this council session, as the budget chairperson, I have tried very hard to actually put in money to make sure that those who have rental properties actually register them with the city and actually enforce them when they don't. As the person who pushed forward the Healthy Homes inspection ordinance, which many of you probably voted for, and thank you for doing that. We pushed forward to actually have enforcement related to that as well. So basically it becomes a budgetary question, and basically it also means that we have to make sure that that work is being done. As someone who's worked at that both in my past before being on the council and being on the council now, I can just tell you I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Now, Councilwoman Alicia Kennedy.
Okay, it's the good one. Question, please.
As mayor, how will you assure that property owners and neighborhood associations follow proper procedures and ordinances?
Property owner enforcement and compliance. I'll tell you what we've done. What we've done recently is we've enacted more code enforcement officers to be able to help create more accountability in neighborhoods where blight is becoming an issue. But that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is making sure there are resources made available through minor home repair. I mentioned earlier I started an initiative called Love That Neighbor, and my council colleagues were supportive of that, actually with the exception of Councilman Wagner, where we were able to provide resources for seniors and disabled persons that had housing court violations and were facing warrants. We were able to do a number of homes with that initiative for people who were otherwise indigent and would not have been able to maintain those properties. We have to take a balanced approach. We have to look at how do we leverage CDBG dollars and community development block grant dollars and monies that we use to invest in neighborhoods and protect those dollars, because they've also been used for enforcement. We don't have a new revenue source for minor home repair programs. We have to look at creating a housing trust fund, provide some additional resources for those persons that otherwise can't maintain their properties. But the goal is to make sure we have nice, safe, livable communities and making sure we have enforcement and resources to do all the same.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Glenn.
This is all about building relationships. So like I told you before, I'm a small business owner. We've got 50 employees working down at the Crossroads, and this amazing team of people has built over 5,000 homes and created over 5,000 jobs by investing in communities across the country. And what I've learned from dealing with clients is that it's all about communication and maintaining relationships. My wife and I work together, so in addition to being happily married and very much in love, we also spend all day together at the office. And I can tell you that that is also all about communication to maintain the relationship. And you know, being a parent, raising 3 kids, it's just about keeping in constant contact. So, to answer your question, as mayor, I'm committed to having one public listening session in every city council district every single year. Not where I'm coming out to make a presentation about what's happening at City Hall, but being there to listen. And I think that listening is a really important part of building and maintaining strong relationships, and that's the key to making progress on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Mr. Klein.
So I think it's all about change and innovation, and also probably having to tell some folks some things they don't want to hear. Tomorrow, we're all going to be at lunch with the downtowners, and they gave us most of their questions up front. And one of them was, in generally speaking, how do we get out of the way, how do we get regulations out of the way for rent property owners, as opposed to how do we strengthen those things? So I fall in the strengthening camp. So tomorrow, I'm going to have the unenviable job of having to tell those folks, I don't agree with them, and I'm not going to go down the path that they're going to go down. But the second piece of this thing's going to be, and something I've not been able to have a chance to talk about, is we have a weak mayoral form of government here in Kansas City. What does that mean? That means the mayor is just one of 13 people on a council. The city manager, an unelected position, really has the real power. That has to change here in Kansas City. It is not designed for a 21st century economy. The mayor ought to be the chief executive officer. The city manager ought to be the chief operating officer. The council ought to be the board of directors. Every single step of the way tonight, I've offered very concrete ideas about how we go forward.
Mr. Klein. Mr. Lee.
Okay, we're talking about the community, the strength of your city leaders. If the city leaders is not leading and they following, and your city is collapsing, that means that you got internal problems with those who oversee the city. We got different jurisdictions involved here. One, you got the city services, and the county sets the assess valuation of your problems, of your property. The county should be tending those problems. We stop at where you turn your water on and off in the street. So we have cohesively work together and stop browbeating these people with all these codes, absentee landlords and stuff. That's a different ballgame. That's criminal. It still falls on the county, which means the prosecutor also has to go out and seek these people and press charges up on it. If it's an ISO, it's still a county issue because they set the valuation of the property. But the city has been raping, robbing, fleecing the poor people in geographic areas and stuff and putting them on probation. It's destroying their lives. If they're already on a fixed income with no money, where do you go? No money left. The city's still going to collapse.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. Councilman Lucas.
Thank you. I'm just figuring it goes that way. All right. First things first. In terms of listening, I want to commend my colleague, Councilman Reed. He and I host monthly 3rd District meetings. Councilwoman Kennedy does the same. I know the Southland, Northland folks do as well. In every council district, this is largely one of the issues we hear about the most. And so making sure that we're prioritizing that at City Hall is key. You may hear about airports on the news and all types of other issues, but this is really one of our core quality of life issues that we need to deal with a lot. To give you something different, the one idea I have in this area is that we need to increase penalties for landlords who throw everything out of the house and leave it on the curb. Right? We see that in so many neighborhoods. It stays as an issue, and whenever you're dealing with evictions, then they're throwing the couch out and everything else, and it sits there often for bulky item pickup sometime much later. We need to make sure that those who can actually pay and who can pay fines, right, and who help create this problem for us in many situations are deterred from doing so. Also, those are often the sources for illegal dumping that we see as well. So I would
I'm sorry,
say
Mr.
really
Lucas, but we have run out of time.
Oh, sorry about that. I got passionate on it.
Mr. Miller?
So to me, this is about empowering neighborhoods, because when we're talking about both enforcement and continuing to try and get people to develop affordable housing, which we need to do both of those things, this is about balancing those two interests. And so I was meeting this morning with someone that does good affordable housing in here and talking about what was important to him. And he says what makes good affordable housing is that person that comes in and engages the community and understands what's going on. I would put the same thing when we're talking about things like code enforcement, etc. So I think having code enforcers that are consistent and fair and firm is an important way of drawing that in. So communication, fair, consistent, firm.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Councilman Reed.
I appreciate the shout out from my colleague, Councilman Lucas. I think you were looking at some of the notes I wrote down because I was going to say the same thing. But, I'll say this, is that, having represent 48 neighborhoods in this community on the city council over the past 8 years, there are over 220 neighborhoods in this city. And at the core of our city are our actual neighborhoods, because there are issues that many of us deal with 365 days out of the year that you all care about. The question talks about how do we deal with enforcement and compliance. Well, we've got to continue to make sure that there are real tools necessary so that when there are illegal dumping issues that we're faced with in our communities, that we're able to get them up in a very efficient manner. The one approach that I would take to this is a very hands-on approach. We at City Hall are behind the digital age as it relates to you communicating with the city. We've got to do everything that we can to utilize technology to ensure that we can make sure that we can address a lot of these issues. Austin's about to cut me off, so I'll talk about this in the next one when I come back. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Reed. Councilman Taylor.
Thank you. Great question, and I agree, when you're at the end, a lot of these things I agree with, but I do want to add, we've had in the 6th District in South Kansas City, 94 monthly meetings in the last 8 years. So every month, second Friday, and we will have them, continue to have them. Everybody's welcome to come by at 7:30 a.m. at 99th and Holmes at the Trailside Center. We have coffee and usually a little light breakfast. But it's a great place for neighborhood leaders to come out and provide us direct feedback outside of City Hall, because City Hall's downtown. That's a long drive for a lot of people. A lot of people don't have time to stop down there. During the campaign, one of the other things I've done is had monthly town hall meetings in 2018, started in January 2018, all throughout the city in all neighborhoods. And we did them in small businesses. And we did that so we could get people to feel comfortable coming down, providing input, providing feedback. And I've used a lot of that feedback. It's been very important in discussions and decision making. So we need more collaboration with neighborhoods. The next mayor really needs to take it up another step. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Taylor. Let's move on to our next audience question. Henry Klein, you will answer first for this one, and David from University Academy will read the question. So, without further ado.
Hi, I'm David McDonald, and my question is, if elected as mayor, how will you address food deserts in Kansas City? If elected as mayor, how will you address food deserts in Kansas City?
We pass down the mic.
So we've got, all right, y'all know by now, I work at 63rd Prospect. I get it, I know it. Now, but we've had a grocery store at Linwood, and as much as I want to admire and respect what somebody's trying to, or what group of people are trying to do there, those folks that work there actually bank in my bank, and they tell me what happens there. And unfortunately, I'm not at all sure that grocery store is going to succeed just like several before it. So what has to happen? We have got to have the right economic models of grocery stores and the types of things like that for fresh fruits and vegetables, et cetera, that have to go in those communities. The best folks that I've seen so far, and look, I shop there, so you know, you'll have to decide if you agree, but Aldi seems to have the right formula for doing that, all right? It's not a fancy grocery store, but it's, you know, it's very affordable. It works as an economic model. So what I'm trying to tell you is let's understand the problem, and then let's bring the right economic model to the food deserts, as opposed to trying to force something else upon it that really probably is not going to work in the long run.
Mr. Lee? Go ahead, sir.
All right, great. Talking about food in the inner city, huh? Wow. I think we got a lot of fat people in the city anyway, so we eating pretty doggone good. We got a lot of fat restaurants all over the city. We living pretty doggone good. So how do we address the food issue? We just go and buy, shop, take these fancy cars and go in where we want to go. And those who cannot leave their community, they shop in those stores, which usually the prices are excessively high. You know what I mean? Myself, I can go anywhere I want to go eat. You know, so we got to just kind of tighten up our belt waist a little bit. You know what I mean? Just tighten up a little bit. But let's eat healthy, which is going to be impossible for me. So if I become your mayor, y'all have my permission to ride me and say, General, you got to get that weight off. Because I'm living pretty doggone good, okay? Work with me, all right?
Thank you very much. Councilman Lucas.
On the food desert issue, first we've dealt with, I think, a number of these different issues relating to construction of new grocery stores. I think we need to continue to try to do that. There's been important work done in the 3rd District. Councilman Reed had mentioned before, both the Aldi on 39th and Prospect and also the Linwood Shopping Center, the new Sunfresh. But even more to the point, I think we need to make sure we're creating access to healthy food wherever people are. There's a small business in our city by the name of Canby's Markets. And what their goal is try to make sure that there's fresh fruit, that there's other healthy food that's delivered in more corner stores, in more smaller environments. Recognizing you can't always build a giant supermarket, and in fact the economics sometimes don't work out for big supermarkets the same way. We want to make sure that we're actually investing in healthy food access, be that the corner store, a convenience store, or something of the sort. And that's what I'd like to see the city work on and incentivize further.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Miller.
Well, I'm going to follow on this. It's not a lack of access to food. It's the lack of access to healthy food. And unfortunately, the poorest in our community don't have access to really healthy foods and are left to try and feed families at McDonald's and other places. That does contribute to obesity. So we need to provide more healthy options, and we need more grocery stores to do that. So we talked about what are the types of development the city ought to be incentivizing or investing. Well, certainly opportunities to be at grocery stores that provide healthier choices is certainly true. The other thing that I love that's going on in our city, and it's only a seasonal option, but the urban farming that's going on throughout our community. It's not a single solution, but it's part of a solution because it does provide healthy things. And then finally, you know, it's about money and investment. So I'm hoping that Henry Klein and Bank of America will be prepared to finance a grocery store on the east side. So everybody can eat healthy, well-balanced diets.
Thank you very much. Councilman Reed.
Oh, everybody got a few jokes in here, don't they? Let me mention this. Growing up in this community, my family, we were low income. And it makes me cringe when we on this dais refer to people as poor. My family didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot of love, a lot of hope, a lot of admiration and an ability to exceed in this community. I grew up in the east side of the city. Oftentimes we would have to go to convenience stores to actually have access to food because it wasn't really fresh. We had a transportation issue because sometimes we had to take the bus to get to where we were going. And so I've worked extremely hard on this over the past 8 years. I think you've heard about that, of course, with the 2 grocery stores that you actually can see right now, that you can go in and shop. And hopefully when y'all leave here, you can go. They close at 9 o'clock. And so, but we have to continue to be intentional in making sure that every area in this entire city has access to fresh fruits, vegetables, and groceries so that we can eliminate this issue because it is a real crisis.
Thank you very much. Councilman.
Thank you. Yeah, so I want to give a little credit here, actually. My colleague, Councilman Reed, did work very hard in the first term on getting some of these things going with Councilwoman Melba Curls. And so it's been good. We need to do more of it. And, you know, the city actually invested quite a bit in Linwood and Prospect, and that's actually a TIF project to get that done. But it's a beautiful store. If you haven't been in there, it's one of the best in the city, quite frankly. And you can buy whatever you need and go there. We had, when I first came on the council, a grocery store that had been closed for quite a few years right by Center High School. I used to be on the Center School Board, and so I was interested in getting it reopened for the community, especially the apartments that surround it, a lot of school children in there. So we worked with the health department. Our health department, believe it or not, is very proactive and can help facilitate those discussions with national grocers to bring them in to Kansas City and help get the deals done. So we need to do more of that and continue it, and I think anybody up here would be in agreement that we need to be proactive on moving forward. Thank you.
Councilman Black.
Thank you. So last term in office, I worked a lot with Cultivate Kansas City and KC Healthy Kids to identify ways that we can actually get more healthy food in the hands of young people and adults alike, because it is a problem that is not necessarily based on race or class. We've got a problem with geography. We do not have the availability of food where we actually need it. And people are trying very hard. I mean, if you go into Ivanhoe, you have the Grown in Ivanhoe program. You have other programs out there that are trying to deliver food, trying to get them into convenience stores. But at the end of the day, you have 2 problems, in my opinion. One is transportation. You cannot get everybody where they want to go to in order to buy fresh fruit and vegetables. And on the other hand, you have smaller businesses that actually want to do more, but they are undercapitalized. All you have to do is go to Leon's in the Seven Oaks area to find that out. So it's a combination of transportation and making dollars available so that you can help people actually build the stores that are necessary, that can provide the food that is necessary for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Kennedy. You can also get the microphone. Thank you.
As it relates to food deserts, Kansas City is 319 square miles. So we need to really reevaluate what we look at as far as providing food access. While transportation is a challenge, people want to be able to get to fresh and healthy food within a reasonable amount of time. I believe that's why we need to look at a different approach of how we deal with it. It's cultural sometimes, like in the Hispanic community, they use bodegas, where you're able to go to a market and get fresh food and cook food in the same place. That's a multi-purpose approach to be able to deal with a demand for a demographic. And I believe that's an appropriate approach for us to take here in Kansas City. Urban farming is a good idea. I've been able to support that initiative. In the 5th district, we have the largest urban orchard in the region, where we're growing fresh fruit and vegetables in the 5th district in Swope Park. But more importantly, the mobile markets that we use. We use the health levy dollars in a lot of different ways, and dealing with food insecurities is one of them. Children's Mercy and Truman Health also provide food vouchers in partnership with harvesters to be able to provide access to families. They have locations throughout the community, so we're providing access in a number of different ways. It's not one size fits all. Thank you.
The best way to ensure that we can have healthy food access and all kinds of neighborhood retail in our communities across Kansas City is we need to elect a leader that has experience investing in these types of businesses, standing them up, and helping them be successful. That's what I've been doing in my career. We built over 5,000 homes. We've created over 5,000 jobs in the business that I own by investing in low-income communities across the country. And here's how you do it. You don't come in from the outside and say, here's what I as an investor or I as a politician think that your community needs. You come in with respect and you listen. And you say, what does this community, by talking with the neighborhood leaders, what is the retail or grocery store need in this community? Once the community is all on board with a strategy that is community driven, then it's the mayor's job to bring access to capital, bring financing to help get those businesses started. So if you look at this from a purely political perspective, you're going to be too limited because there will never be enough money in the city budget and probably not enough local investment dollars to do this at the scale that we need it. We need a mayor who has experience bringing hundreds of millions of dollars in private investment to communities nationwide, and I'm ready to open Kansas City up to that national conversation about how we bring investment to our neighborhoods for the things they need.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thanks for all you guys for your great answers.
Before we ask our final question, everyone please give your attention to University Academy Junior Leonia White, who will be sharing her slam poem with us.
Hi, how's everybody doing? My name is Leonia White, and this poem is called Dear You. Dear you, I've been trying to reach you for some years now. Maybe it's been addressed to the wrong person, but regardless of that fact, let's state facts. I need you to know that I'll need you, so take on the role of blue skies, because I need someone to look up to. I don't want those little white lies or not even whitewashed lifestyle. I need someone to depend on when my life don't seem worthwhile. Did you know that smiles could go a long way? Or that maybe your hope could get me somewhere someday? Listen, I don't really know where to go, but don't lead me on. Just put me on the right track. Steer me right when you see that I'm on the wrong path, and maybe I'll grow up to be you someday. Stand tall like you in such a high and mannerable way. I'll get there someday, but right now it's today, and today is the time for you to make things right. So, go ahead and fight for us. Those who are cheering in your corner, those who watch you make your moves, you'll break barriers and borders, you'll do great things. And that's something I'm sure of. But right now you have the power to make yourself heard of. In the end, it's all worth it. It's you for the win, but your finish line is where my future begins.
Thank you, Leonia White.
We greatly appreciate the candidates for coming out today, and for the audience, you all for joining us. We have one final closing question designed to encourage the candidates to reflect upon their aspirations to be mayor. So here it is. Thinking ahead 4 years from now, in what ways will Kansas City be improved at the end of your first term because you were elected as mayor? So Councilman Reed, you will answer first.
Thank you, Phil. Listen, I love this city, and I grew up in this city. I know the struggles of this city, and frankly, I just want to help the city. While I don't have a law degree like many of the people who are on this dais, nor did I start a small business, I have helped a lot of people along the way. I've helped a woman get her water turned back on. I've helped a few people get the trash picked up. Additionally, I've led the fight to increase minimum wage here to $15 an hour and removing the box from employment applications that asks if you've been convicted of a felony. Additionally, I realize that we as a city 4 years from now have to be able to face some of the largest challenges together. James Baldwin once said that not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing is changed until it's faced. As mayor of this city, I want to be able to face many of those top challenges that are before us by reducing crime and violence, fixing our crumbling infrastructure, and our basic city services in this city. I ask for your vote on April 2nd. I'm Jermaine Reed. Thank you all so much for having us tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Taylor.
Well, I thank you all for being here tonight. A great audience and a large audience for some of the forums we've had, so it's great. I have had I've got a wonderful wife and a 15-year-old son, and Having served both on the school board at Center, that was a great experience. I've taken a lot of those experiences working with other parents in the district to improve the district, increase teacher pay, increase test scores, and use that on the city council over the last 8 years to serve you. It's been a real honor to serve you, and we have momentum in a lot of parts of the city now. Right after, I came on right after the Great Recession, but we really need for every neighborhood in the city to have that same momentum. And I have a track record of helping to revitalize areas of neighborhoods and neighborhood shopping centers so the neighborhoods would be strong. But we need that in all parts of the city. And in 4 years, I would hope that East of Troost looks as good and as much activity as we had. If we set the tone 20 years ago in downtown, just imagine in 5 or 10 years what East of Troost will look like in Kansas City. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Wagner.
Thank you very much, and I apologize again for being late. I came the first time in 2011 when I ran for city council because I was a neighborhood president. And I believe that the neighborhoods are what is the basis of everything that we do within this city. I've tried to take that feel in every part of the work that I do, which has resulted in things like a citywide sidewalk program, the first one of its kind, and we're 2 years into it. Passing and moving forward on a healthy homes ordinance, because I believe that people who live in neighborhoods should just live under a roof, but should live in a good home that is healthy for them. And a number of other things that I've tried to do over time. I want to run for mayor because as we have done great transactions, airports and hotels and all of these things, there are foundational things that are important. Our homicide rate needs to be not just 82, but 0. It needs to be where we have people who are unemployed and underemployed that can have a job, whether it's in construction, high-tech, logistics, and many other things. And most of all, we need to be a city that is a global city, that when people see what is the city that is moving forward, they know the answer is Kansas City. And I want to be the mayor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Councilwoman Kennedy.
What makes me qualified to be the next mayor of this city? Is it because I'm an attorney, because I'm a business owner, because I've served on appointed boards and commissions, because I worked in corporate America, or because I know wealthy donors? I have all those things as attributes, so do many of the people in this dais. But that does not make you qualified to be the next mayor of this city. What makes me qualified is that I have a plan to move us forward in the right direction. I have demonstrated my leadership over the last 3.5 years on this council, being willing to take bold stands on things that mean the most to you as taxpayers. I've demonstrated my willingness to lead on issues that are important as relates to gun violence and public safety in this city. I have done that in a number of different areas, but I believe the real crux of this is the big 5. Making sure we have an environment where there are strong children, strong families, strong neighborhoods, strong schools, a strong economic environment for success, and that makes a strong Kansas City. And so I ask for your support as the next mayor of Kansas City. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Glenn.
My name's Phil Glenn, and 4 years from today, I want us all to be able to look in the mirror and say that we're a community that's been focused on breaking down barriers. So when the snow and ice comes, I want to make sure that there isn't a single kid in this city that has to miss multiple days of school because the city can't get it cleared. I want to make sure there isn't a single small business in this community that has to close its doors because the city can't deliver that basic service. When it comes to skills training and our workforce development, I want to make sure that there isn't a single worker in Kansas City who can't get access to a reliable, successful workforce training program to allow them to participate in the economic growth that we're having in our community right now. I want to make sure that we're dealing with that transportation barrier. Right now, there are people in Kansas City who have the skills, who have gone out and worked hard to get the training and have applied for a job and they've got it, but they can't get to work because our public transportation system is a barrier to them being successful in the workplace. I believe we can be a city just with no barriers. There should be nothing that stands in the way of our people being as successful as possible and making Kansas City a truly great city. Again, my name's Phil Glenn. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you very much. Mr. Klein.
So on my yard signs, one of them says, "The impossible happens every day." So is it going to be possible to make the police priorities our priorities? Is it going to be possible to have a mayor who puts the #1 priority is education in his platform or her platform? Is it going to be possible to change a city hall structure that was designed for a 19th or 20th century to put it into a 21st century with a
strong form of mayoral government instead of a weakened form of mayoral government. And finally, and last but not least, the development lawyer on this panel, Steve Miller, is it going to be possible to get him, when I'm mayor, to do economic development for food deserts here in Kansas City? Steve, I had to add that one since the Bank of America comment. So, in any case, I'm trying to have a little fun here. My point is that everybody here, especially our children, aim higher. They know about how to aim higher. They know how to go big or go home. That's what my candidacy is all about. So when I tell you that we're fighting for lost causes, don't let those be the lost causes.
Thank you. Mr. Lee.
Okay, we're talking about Texas once again. No money, you can't do nothing no matter what they say. A weak mayor government like we have from this administration all the way back for many, many years. I got over 28 years experience in dealing with all of these people in our city government. What I'm going to do when I become mayor, and I will be your next mayor, because we have to cut your taxes. We have to work hard with the county structure. We got to get your taxes down on your property. Now, as mayor and controlling the water department stuff, your water bill's out of control, I take the runoff and sewers off your bill. Now, to my people in Cache County, I'm not forgot about you. Y'all know I love you out there. 200 residents. My people up in Clay County, God knows you know I love you all. Platte County, please don't fear me. Don't be afraid of me. Change is coming your way. The airport definitely going to leave. Getting back to me being a strong mayor, I want you to know I fight for all of Kansas City. And you need to know how powerful your water coming in. It stretches across the state line, and we pump it straight out to Lawrence, Kansas, clear east to Odessa, Missouri. I love you. I'm running for mayor. Please give me that vote.
Thank you very much. Councilman Lucas.
Thank you all so much. First of all, I want to commend the students at University Academy and HBHA. Y'all did a beautiful job. Y'all did a great job. And I was going to go through life story, but I'll make it very brief. I've had the fortune of knowing a lot about your schools since University Academy opened, and I've known HBHA since I was in high school. You're exceptional schools, and you'll all go on to be some exceptional people. My goal 4 years from now is that every child in Kansas City has the opportunities that you have, that every child has that opportunity to succeed, that they have a strong education, and that you all are making the changes for the future of our city. So really, I'll just finish with that, saying I'm Quentin Lucas. I want everybody to be like the students at University Academy and HBHA. I'm proud of what y'all put on today, and if you can put on something like this, which is the best forum that this group has had, then the future of our city is unstoppable. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you very much, Councilman Lucas. Mr. Miller.
So the question was, how will our city look 4 years from now? My vision is for all of you, students here, that we're going to be a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive city. And let me give you a snapshot of just one part of our city that we can and must change, and we have the opportunity. It's emerging right now. Troost, the symbol of our racial divide, the sin upon this city, from 23rd to 63rd Street, 4 years from now, has the opportunity to look like a city that is of small businesses, of diversity, of people of all ages and races mixing, of a mixed income and mixed housing, of people going back and forth, of good transportation options, whether it's bike or scooter or streetcar or buses. A neighborhood that's more peaceful and an education system that's stronger, with a mosaic of high-performing public schools and charter schools and private schools that provide a wealth of opportunity, and moving people into good jobs that are close and transport. That's the vision that I have, that we transport Troost from a symbol of divide into a symbol of unity.
Thank you.
As we close, thank you to everyone in the audience and to both the University Academy and the Hyman brand communities who came out to listen to the candidates and participate in our democracy. We'd also like to thank the business community for your interest and support. Thank you to Future Boats KC students and teachers in Moore Square for all the hard work you have done to help us put this forum together. A big thank you to Steve Eklund, All Things Tech at University Academy, who has helped our program flow cohesively tonight.
Finally, a warm thank you to all the candidates for taking the time out of your incredibly busy schedules to talk to the public about the pertinent issues in our community. Remember, the mayoral primary is Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019. Best of luck to all you guys. Thank you. Future Votes KC students, please gather around the stage. Thank you.